Cancel the contract. They're leaving the mansion tomorrow morning. The words were calm, almost gentle. But the moment the young woman lowered her phone, every sound inside the sunlit dining room disappeared. Her mother-in-law laughed. "Oh, that's adorable," she said. "Pretending you have power now?" Eleanor didn't answer. She simply rested one hand on her pregnant belly and looked toward the front door. If stories about dignity and quiet strength inspire you, take a second to like the video and subscribe. This one is only getting started. Just 10 minutes earlier, nothing seemed unusual. The mansion stood beneath a bright blue sky, surrounded by perfectly trimmed gardens and blooming white roses. Inside, however, peace had never existed. Eleanor had married Daniel 2 years earlier. Daniel loved her with all his heart. His mother, Margaret, never did. To Margaret, Eleanor had one unforgivable flaw. She wasn't born into wealth. It didn't matter that Eleanor was kind. It didn't matter that she treated everyone with respect. Margaret only saw a last name she considered beneath the family's reputation. Daniel had spent the past month traveling between company branches, trying to finalize an international partnership. He believed his wife was safe while he was away. He couldn't have been more wrong. Every morning, Margaret found another way to remind Eleanor that she didn't belong. Sometimes it was the dining room, sometimes the garden, sometimes the endless family collections that had to be polished until every reflection looked perfect. "You carry our family name now," Margaret often said. "You should earn it." Eleanor never argued. She simply smiled softly and kept working. Not because she was weak, because she believed peace was worth protecting, especially now. She was 6 months pregnant. Every stressful moment felt heavier than before. Still, she refused to complain. Whenever Daniel called, she asked about his meetings instead. She always ended with the same sentence. "We're doing fine." She lied every single time. One sunny afternoon, Margaret opened an old wooden cabinet filled with antique silver. Every piece had belonged to Daniel's grandparents. She placed every tray, spoon, and candlestick across the enormous dining table. "Every single one," she ordered. "I want to see my face in them." Eleanor quietly nodded. There were dozens. She stood there for hours. Her back ached. Her swollen feet hurt. But she kept polishing. A maid walked by. She slowed for a moment, clearly wanting to help. Margaret stopped her immediately. "No. She needs to understand what privilege costs." The maid lowered her eyes and left. Eleanor continued without saying a word. Margaret watched her carefully. "You know what surprises me?" she asked. "You actually look comfortable doing this." "I suppose people never forget where they come from." Eleanor paused only for a second, then continued polishing. Margaret smiled. The silence bothered her more than arguments ever could. So she pushed harder. "When this baby grows up, don't let him believe he belongs to this family just because of his father's name." Eleanor finally looked up, not angry, only disappointed. "My child will know kindness," she answered quietly. Margaret laughed. "Kindness doesn't buy respect." Before Eleanor could respond, the front door opened. Daniel had returned 4 days early. He stepped inside carrying a travel bag and immediately sensed something was wrong. The servants weren't speaking. The house felt strangely tense. Then he heard his mother's voice echoing from the dining room. "So Polish faster. If you're going to live under this roof, at least make yourself useful." Daniel walked toward the room. He stopped in the doorway. His pregnant wife stood beside the table, surrounded by piles of polished silver. Her hands were shaking. Margaret stood over her like a supervisor correcting an employee. Daniel had never seen anything like it. "What is going on?" Margaret turned calmly. "Oh, perfect timing. I was teaching your wife her place in this house." Silence. Daniel looked at Eleanor. Only then did he notice the redness on her hands and how exhausted she looked. He stepped toward her. "Eleanor, Why didn't you tell me?" She smiled faintly. "You already had enough to carry." Daniel slowly turned toward his mother. His voice stayed calm. "She is my wife." Margaret folded her arms. "And this is still my house." She said it with absolute confidence. Then she pointed toward the untouched silver. "As long as she lives here, she'll learn respect." Eleanor quietly reached into her pocket. She unlocked her phone, dialed one number, waited, then spoke only one sentence. "Cancel the contract. They're leaving the mansion tomorrow morning." Daniel stared at his wife. "Who did you just call?" Eleanor calmly locked her phone. "You'll know in a minute." Margaret laughed louder than before. "Oh, please. You think one phone call scares me? I've lived in this mansion for 25 years. It belongs to this family." Eleanor looked at her quietly. "Not exactly." Before anyone could ask another question, a black sedan stopped outside, then another. Two professionally dressed representatives stepped inside carrying folders. The older one smiled politely. "Good afternoon, Ms. Eleanor." "We received your instructions." Margaret frowned. "What instructions?" The man opened the folder. "The occupancy agreement for this property has officially been terminated. The residents listed under the Temporary Family Accommodation Program must vacate the estate within 24 hours. Silence. Margaret blinked. "I think you've made a mistake. My husband owns this house." The representative shook his head. "No, ma'am. This estate belongs to the Hawthorne Family Foundation. It has for 17 years. Daniel slowly turned toward Eleanor. "You..." She finally met his eyes. "My grandfather created the foundation. When we got married, I asked them to let your parents stay here. I wanted to know whether they would treat me like family, even if they believed I brought nothing." Margaret's face turned pale. "You lied to us." Eleanor shook her head. "I never lied. You never asked." The representative placed one final document on the table. "The moving company will arrive tomorrow morning. We'll assist with the transition." Margaret suddenly looked at Daniel. "Tell them this is insane. Tell your wife to stop." Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the room. The polished silver. His wife's trembling apes. The exhaustion in her face. Everything he had failed to see. Then he quietly stepped beside Eleanor. He took her hand. And for the first time, he didn't stand between two people. He chose one. "My wife belongs wherever I belong," he said. "And if she wasn't respected here, then none of us ever deserved this home." Margaret's shoulders dropped. Years of pride disappeared in seconds. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. If you're hoping this story has a deeper ending, stay with us. And don't forget to subscribe. We're almost there. That evening, Daniel walked through every room with Eleanor. She smiled sadly. "I never wanted the house. I only wanted peace." Daniel lowered his head. "I was so busy building a future. I never noticed yours was falling apart." She squeezed his hand. "You noticed now. Sometimes, that is where healing begins." The following morning, the moving trucks arrived. No arguments, no revenge, only consequences. Months later, the mansion felt different. Not because fewer people lived there, because kindness finally did. The silver remained on display, untouched. Daniel never asked Eleanor to polish it again. One afternoon, sunlight filled the dining room. He smiled as he watched her reading by the window with one hand resting on her belly. For the first time, the mansion truly felt like a home. Sometimes a family name opens doors, but character decides who deserves to stay behind them. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone you love, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us that respect is always worth more than inheritance.